I now invite Toastmaster Alicia Shepherd to introduce our next speaker, our tenacious Vice President of Education, Toastmaster Francoise Bowen. Over to you, Madam Evaluator.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day. When the pandemic began March 2020, many minds ran into seeking ways they can earn a passive income. One of the things that took wings with a major leap was investing in real estate. Many persons found themselves in horrible situations where they had to move back to their families to regain their financial purse, and then realize they can sell their homes or for some flip it and make an income. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished Toastmasters and guests. Francoise Bowen is on level 5 in the pathway of dynamic leadership. She is doing an elective called Moderate a Panel Discussion. The purpose of this project is for the member to apply her knowledge and skill as a public speaker and leader to facilitate a panel discussion. Please invite Toastmaster Francois to the virtual lectern as she moderates her panel discussion this evening.
Thank you so much, VPE Alicia. Thank you so much. And before I start the conversation, I would like to speak with the timer. Timer, I'm requesting my speech is total 40 minutes. The first 30 minutes, time as the discussion, and the 10 minutes will be question and answer. The 30 minutes, time as the discussion, and the 10 minutes, timed as question and answer. You can let me know if you received this.
At what point would you like to see the green light for the 30 minutes?
I'd like to see the green light at 20.
And the yellow light?
25.
And 30 for at the red?
At the red.
Okay, and for the 10 minutes?
For the 10 minutes, 5 at the green.
Yes?
Sorry, not 5. But yes, 5 at the green, 8 at the yellow, and then 2 at the red.
All right, that's noted.
Okay. Welcome everyone to Antigua Toastmasters Club. I am Vice President Francoise Bowen, and I'm doing my elective 5 on moderator panel discussion. And I have special invited guests with me. In the chat, I have shared their flyer, which reveals their bios. Because it's lengthy, and of course I'm in time, I'm going to only read briefly what for each individual, and then we will proceed. I'm going to start with Dr. Omai Kofi. From homelessness to homeowner to real estate investor, Omai has created a small fortune by taking her options trading and cryptocurrency profits and turning them into real estate projects all over the world. Omai began investing in real estate in 2001. Her 20 years experience has instructed her to become a professional fundraiser for real estate and investment projects. And I'm going to list a few things that she has done, which is not listed on the bio. She has done more. In 2001, she had invested in mobile homes. And in 2012, she did some residential, which had a team of 100. And the transactional funding for that was 25 MM, which is multi-million. For the land and family business, she's done 400 acres in Texas. She has done also real estate in Togo, Africa, Abuja, Nigeria, which is doing commercial real estate. And in 2020, which will be during the pandemic, she sold flip homes, a lot of multifamily. And it was a team of 25 and also duplex homes. Then I'm now going to read to you my next guest, and I'm doing it in the order of ladies. I have none other than our FCCA Cassandra Simon, C.DR, which is director. This is her bio. She's self-employed as an accountant from 2003. Previously worked in the media, tax administration, public firms, and private companies. Served on the boards of Antigua Barbuda Employees Federation, National Development Foundation, and currently serve on the boards of Antigua Commercial Bank and ACB Mortgage and Trust. And she's also known to many of us as Toastmaster because she is also a Toastmaster, Toastmaster Cassandra. And my last guest, where as they say, the thorn among the roses, I have Mr. Realtor, Mr. Franklin Maynard. He's worked in various fields, including logistics, sales, printing, and publishing. He co-founded Apex Realtors International in 2007 and currently works there. The company provides real estate sales and rental. They also provide property management services and sells general insurances. He is a former member of Toastmasters Club. I still have some recruiting to do here right now. But he's also a member of the Lions Club and served as the president in 2019 to 2020. He's married with 2 beautiful children. Please help me welcome my guest to the virtual lectern. Hello, team. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the welcome.
Okay. Yes, there's so much going on right now. Everybody's going into real estate. Everybody's like, oh, I want to flip house. I want to do this. I want to do that. Yes, I'm going to be the multi 7, 10 figures behind the name. But I know something has to start first. And the question is, what are the first steps a first-time homeowner should take? Tell us exactly, because we have a prestige audience here, and we don't want to assume that everybody knows. And for me, I really don't know everything either. So you're the professional, so I'm going to ask these questions. If they sound foolish, because I don't know. If they sound wise, I still don't know. So my first question is, what are the first steps a homeowner should take? And I'm going to start with Mr. Maynard.
Thank you and good evening again. The first thing, I made a mistake with an R, very sorry. But the first thing is that they need to communicate with their bank, have a talk with their bank to ascertain what they can afford to borrow. So that would mean from that amount, they will know whether they can afford to borrow for a piece of land, which obviously costs less, or whether they can afford a property. And once that is established, then they can contact me or fellow realtor, and then we can go through the process of identifying something that is suitable and something that fits their budget.
Okay. Miss Simon, what are you're in the finance? You're where the money is. What then should, listening to what Mr. Maynard said, what exactly should we have? Is $5 enough to, I can go, hey, I need that multi-luxury house with this $5.
Francois, I would say the first thing is to decide whether you really want to own a house. Because I know some person who say that they have no intention of owning a house because look at it, home ownership is expensive. When you own your own house, every time the pipe bursts, it's your responsibility. But when you're a tenant, when the pipe bursts, you pick up the phone, you call the landlord. But if you have decided that you really do want to own your own home, I agree, Mr. Maynard, you need to determine how much it's going to cost you. Now, lots of time, people have this idea. We drive around and we see these nice houses in these nice areas, and we decide that we want something like that when we really can't afford it. And I know at one time, a very popular bank did not give loans for new homes. Why? Because you come to the bank, you definitely can afford X, maybe a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house based on your income, and the bank approves that loan. But then you go driving on a Sunday afternoon and you see somebody have a French window, and you go to your contract and you say, well, listen, I now want a French window on both sides of the house, which means it has increased your costs. And you run out of money and you're going back to the bank and say, well, listen, I need more money, even though you cannot afford it. So you're gonna look at what you can afford in terms of buying the land and waiting to build as your income increases, or you can go all out and buy it one time, or you can build. That's the other thing about it. You have to understand, if you purchase a house, the price you're purchasing at is exactly what it is now. But if you decide you're gonna build a house, what we've seen during COVID is that materials costs have increased. So lots of persons who have built now are crying out because, heck, I didn't factor that in. So lots of things to consider, but I tell people all the time, put pen to paper and decide what you can afford, not necessarily what you would like.
So which means then many persons are looking on aesthetics. They're looking on, that's what the focus is.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So Dr. Omai, from you're in America, and one of the big things, of course, is real estate. And listen to what Mr. Maynard shared, and also Ms. Simon, from your neck of the woods, what is actually the first step a homeowner should take in your neck of the woods?
Well, depending on what they're looking for. So most first-time home buyers are looking to stop renting. So the price of rent is going to be a little bit more than the price of mortgage, just simply for the fact that they want to stay within a certain budget. In America, right, the tendency is to actually live outside of your means and keep up with the Joneses. So a lot of times, first-time home buyers are looking for something bigger than what they're in and better than where they are. So they're not really worried about price as much. They're moreover concerned about the way that it looks or feels. So the first thing that we do is we go shopping first. And in that shopping process, that might be done online. That doesn't have to be physically. And then once we go shopping online, we submit that information over to the lenders, and the lenders go off our credit report. So the first time home buyers here are focused on their credit scores, knowing that their credit score is going to give them the proper loan for the type of house that they want. So it's just a conglomerate of all three things, right? Credit score, what home they like, and the price of the home is really not a big deal to them. As long as it's something that is less than what they were paying in rent or around the same price point, they're pretty good with that. But as for me, I disagree with all of that. And I just say, for home ownership, I see houses as bank accounts, and so I treat them as such. I don't have any emotion towards them. I see them as bank accounts, and I use them for leverage. So I do look for homes that someone else would like to rent. So that's the way that a lot of times I teach first-time home buyers to consider, because they may not want to stay there. They may want to upgrade or downgrade. And either way, it doesn't matter. They want to be able to get out of that home. That means it has to be desirable to somebody else. So that's what I teach people in our program.
Okay, so you just use a word that is unfamiliar for some persons, credit score. What on earth is credit score? I'm going to tell you. I was doing something online, and it was to be in a webinar. And the question they asked me, what is this credit score? Is it more than 650 or 630? And I'm like, what is credit score? So explain to us what is credit score. And then I'm going to ask Miss Simon if we have this in Antigua, because I am kind of at the loss. What is credit score?
Well, the American credit score system is basically your report card. It's your grade. So just like in school, they give you grades, or in college, they give you grades or a letter. And it's basically the way that lenders see you. The way the credit bureaus handle that relationship that you have with lenders is they keep a numeric data score based off your ability to pay or not pay your bills. So a credit score is basically the score that summarizes your credit report. So this score just tells people, hey, this person is a risk or this person is not so much of a risk. If you're not so much of a risk, that means you have a better credit score. That means you get better interest rates to 0% interest rates. If you are a credit risk, that means that you are someone with a lower credit score, and that score represents a higher interest rate. So basically it's a rating system. On the bank side, it's more money for the bank. On the on the consumer side, it's more money for you. So either they're the winner or you're the winner, and you choose that by your credit score, basically your credit profile and your credibility. And so it's just opportunity for them to grade you, and they say what the grade is. And so anyone here in America with a 500 to a 600 credit score, they're going to receive interest rates that are unfavorable. Anyone with a 720 and above are going to receive favorable interest rates. So most people are shooting to be a part of the 700 club, or like me, the 800 club. So then that way they can get whatever they want, when they want, how they want, and they're treated a little bit differently on the backside of the lending portfolio.
Oh, okay. Ms. Simon, is this something that when I go to let's say ACB, because you're the vice chairman, I just go and say, hey, is it something? Explain to us what is it something that is?
It's not as formal here. We don't have a credit bureau, even though it's supposed to be coming. But yes, the banker does calculate a credit rating. It's actually called your debt service ratio, in that they're looking at your disposable income, what is left after they have factored in your outgoings, your income less what is available. And that too, depending on how much your your income to debt service ratio is, in that how much time, how well are you covering your loan payments? So if your income, after having taken into account all your disposals in terms of your day-to-day, your insurance, your statutory deductions, whatever not, is still high, then similarly, you can command a lower interest rate. So it's not as formal as is in the US, but it is done here as well. What we do have as well is what we call a credit check. So the banker will call around to all the other institutions, including Axel Finance and Fast Cash, as well, and determine what, yes. I mean, those kind of quotes now is ready finance. That's what they advertise. So because it's so easy, it's very easy to get loans from these institutions. A lot of persons have gone there, despite the fact that the interest rates are killer. I mean, I would call them like, almost akin to a loan shark, because the interest rate is just so high. But a lot of persons have gone to these payday loan agencies and gotten loans. So the bank will check with all these institutions to see exactly what your exposure is. And they will calculate, similar to the US, a credit score for you, just that you yourself don't normally do that exercise. So in the US, you would know your personal credit score, the lending institution will know your credit score, but in our case, normally it's the bank that calculates your credit rating.
Okay, so
we're getting there.
Okay, so which means too, if the bank call around everybody, that means we have a lot of persons that use box sign. So they call the person who's holding the box hand and say, okay, let's find.
But your box hand is not necessarily income. I mean, it's like a one-time inflow. So in the situation you have a loan, you say, well, listen, I'm expecting a box hand, and when I get that box hand, I'll do a lump sum payment. Then they will ask the box holder. But similarly, when you go to the bank with your box hand to deposit it, you have to get some sort of receipt from the box holder, because your anti-money laundering procedures indicate that you must know the source of this fund. So somebody's coming into the bank with $10,000, $12,000 and say, well, I was throwing a box for the last year. You get me some sort of receipt from that box holder. You get a letter from that box holder to say that, yes, that is the proceeds of the box. So we definitely need a credit rating agency here.
So then, this leads to my question now, because we have a lot of clients that are part of the box hand financial bank? Are they better than the one who take a mortgage? Because I know somebody that built their apartment from out of pocket, and they were like, they're not going to the bank for no reason. But then I'm thinking, okay, box hand or out of pocket versus mortgage. What's the difference between the two?
Interest rate. But it takes a lot of discipline. You think about persons who are disciplined enough to continually pay that. Now, I'm a person that if I'm in a hand, I haven't been in a box for a number of years, but if I went into a box hand, I want the first hand because I want to be able to get my money, put it to some sort of use, okay? But no, it's not a Ponzi. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It does work. I'm not sure if you understand what box hand is. Some islands call it susus. Right? I don't know the other name, but
yes,
right, exactly. So it's not a Ponzi scheme as such, because the box holder takes out something, so you don't get it back everything. But persons like box because it's a way of being disciplined. Now, I'm the kind of person, I want the first hand because I want to be able to get my box hand safe, so just in case anything happens, and I want to be able to use it to do something. But most persons will tell you, they want the last hand because they want not to have access to it, then they waste it. So it does take a bit of discipline, but the difference between a box hand and say the mortgage is interest rate. But you also have to factor in that when you're billing out of pocket, you have rising costs. So how long does it take you to save or throw a box hand sufficient enough to build that apartment out of pocket?
Right.
As opposed to going to the bank, having all the money now, and being able to take advantage of discounts and whatnot and save the rising costs. So the rising costs in material costs, labor costs, unavailability of materials may actually work out to be more than the interest rate that the bank is charging you.
Okay.
Can I add something as well?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Maynard.
Yeah, that when you have your box hand and you, let's just say you have, just call it a figure, 300,000. And you've spent the 300,000 on a property, you still are valued at 300,000. Whereas if you have the 300,000 saved and you borrow an additional 300,000, you're now in the $600,000 range. You'd have your funds saved and you also have your investment. So you're operating in a totally different league. You have cash on hand and you have assets. So it's, in most cases, I think best to use the bank's money, as they say, and hold on to your savings.
And hold on to the savings, okay. Now, here is something for you, Mr. Maynard. Buying a property versus buying a land and build from scratch. I personally, I don't have chick, nor come as yet. And that's a slang we use in Antigua, meaning we don't have any children as yet. For those who may not understand that slang, okay? But I don't have chick, nor come as yet. But I prefer to buy a multi-family home. Is that the right option for me?
Well, it goes back to the first question you asked, what you can afford. If you can afford to buy a large structure, multifamily, and it fits what you want, fine. I think the average person probably cannot afford that, so it is best to start with land. Get a piece of land, pay for it, and as you're paying for it, hopefully your income will increase, so you can then go back to the bank at some point in time and purchase the building. You can also use the land itself as equity. If you purchase it and you're single, at some point, hopefully you could get married and then you and your partner can use that land. In addition to that, if the situation and the scenario changes that much that you never use that land, that you're able to buy a house somewhere else or buy a second piece of land and build on it, that land is still there, it's equity, it's still there as part of generational wealth that you can pass on to your children.
Huh. So now land, I know you have to be careful where you buy land because I never know land depreciate. I remember, for instance, purchased a land many moons ago. When it got revalued or reassessed, it said it dropped to a signal like, I didn't know since when land depreciate. I know the only thing that depreciates is vehicles. How land depreciates?
Well, Cassandra is smiling, and she will tell you that yes, beyond vehicles, other things depreciate. And I'll leave that side to her. But on the rare occasion, yes, land depreciates. If the whole economy is dropping, then the value of everything comes down. And in that case, the land can depreciate. Now, in addition to that, pardon?
Oh, really?
It's really about demand, because the only true value, if you've ever seen a valuation report, the value always says, well, listen, this is my point of reference in terms of recent sales. So look at what the land or houses have been selling in that area in recent times. That's a point of reference. They will also have what is called a forced sale value. So if you can afford to sit back and relax and fold your hands and wait for a good buyer coming to offer you a price for that land, you can ask for anything you want. But if you're forced to sell it in a quick sale because you want money, obviously it goes down by about 25%. Now, let's say you bought a 1/4 acre of land some time ago, let's say in Buckley's or whatever not. But then the person next to you bought a 1/4 acre, and then they have children. So the children now have built around that house, which means there's no land space, or there may be 4 houses on a piece of land that really should only accommodate 1 house. The aesthetics of it has reduced, because I'm not going to want to live around someone. My 1/4 acre, I want to build a very large, palatial kind of house, and I'm going to be living next door to someone who has 4 little small house on a land. So in that case, it can depreciate as well, because the only true value is what someone is willing to pay for it.
So what if the 4 little houses have a luxury style to it? I mean, it has a Mercedes parked.
The only true value is what someone is willing to pay for it. So you may feel that they're cottages. I mean, I like a small house. I mean, we went back to that point of what somebody can afford. And when I do these things, I always remind persons of the Brady Bunch. Now, if you grew up watching the Brady Bunch, there were 6 children, the mom and the dad, and there was a living helper. Now, by our standards, we would need to have about a 10-bedroom house, because each child has to have its own room. But the Brady Bunch children lived in 1 room in bunk beds. So the most that their house had was 4 bedrooms. Today's standards, no, we want a 10-bedroom house, but can we afford a 10-bedroom house?
Dr. Omai, in your neck of the woods, what is it for you with having persons? I know you have because people are now big with mobile homes investing, and we are speaking from what Ms. Simon said about having small homes that are built on next door property. Then will the mobile homes, will that depreciate somebody's property, or will it go up?
Yeah, well, typically it appreciates, because here, having a house, I mean, it's like everybody and their mom is moving somewhere, needing a place to stay. So what she was talking about is amazing, because if you think about supply and demand, we don't have enough supply. We have a very high demand for a place to stay, especially in somewhere where I am, which is in Texas, where everybody wants to live. So because of taxes, because of so many other incentives to live in this state, therefore it is not enough homes. So you could put up a shack and somebody would pay double asking price for it right now just to have a place here. So the demand is high. But let's just say that there have come a point where it's not really a buyer's market. There's not much going on. Typically your homes do appreciate depending on the area. I've never seen depreciation, not that it couldn't happen based off supply and demand, but even with a mobile home, a lot of people are being a little creative. They're putting stucco on it, they can add brick to it. So it being a manufactured home or a modular home doesn't matter. And a lot of people are actually moving that way, because you can purchase them with hemp products, which is healthier for the environment. So that's pretty much where people are headed. So that supply and demand is pretty high. So that appreciating value is also very high as well.
Okay, so let me ask this almost final question. we have, this is to Mr. Maynard. What is your view on couples that want to buy a home, they're not married? They want to go to the bank and want to take a loan. You as a realtor, do you overlook that and say, you know what, I need the money, I don't really business? So let me take the money? Or do you say, hey, you are not engaged or anything? Do you give, what advice can you give? And Miss Simon, I remember we did a class, I did a class with you. And I know that is something that you're like, So let me hear, Mr.
I'll let Mr. Maynard do that one.
Yes.
Well, for me, it is basically what they want. I don't get involved in counseling unless I'm asked to. If they ask me, I'll give an opinion. But and there's no perfect situation. There've been persons who've been married for 25 years and there's a divorce and they have to sell the property. And I do get involved in those as well. That the bank requires the property to be sold, or the lawyer says, well, it's not the bank really, but the lawyer says that it has to be sold, and then I'm contacted. So the fact that that two persons are not married, I guess the bank may look at this at a risk. I don't. The fact that somebody's 25 years married, other persons may not look at it as a risk. So it's I don't get involved in that. If the question is asked, I answer. I sell to whoever wants to sell, who wants to buy. Sorry.
Miss Simon, let me hear you, because I know
I'm not selling the house. So then if the person is gonna come to me for personal financial advice, I'm gonna pretty much say to them that make sure that both names are on that paper, because just yesterday I was having a conversation with someone and I say, I've never overlapped. They found it strange. I say, I've never overlapped. So obviously I'm gonna think about myself. I'm gonna think about the possibilities. Old people say, leave room for disappointment. So I would pretty much say to them, make sure that's one of the reasons I would say to the person, go and get legal advice, because you have these things about joint ownership and ownership in lieu and whatever not, which are legal terms. Make sure if you're doing this, put your name on paper before the marriage, that you ensure that your interest is protected. Because I know couples where the gentleman owned the land, but the loan is in the couple's name. And then when something comes, the man gets to sell the property because the house is on his land. So it is his.
Okay.
If I can just add to that point though, but there is a legal component in there that if either one party owns the property and the couple is married, when you're entering into the mortgage, the bank, to protect the bank and the other party, the bank requires that a legal document is signed that gives the other person who does not own the land as much legal right to the property for the period of the loan. So that what happens is that if there's an auction or anything where the bank gets involved, one person can say, well, I don't own the land, so I'm not responsible. Or one person says, well, I'm the one that owns the land, so everything belongs to me, so you don't get anything. So there is a legal document that is signed that runs the term of the loan that gives both parties full rights and responsibility as if they owned it.
Okay.
And the party who doesn't own it as well has to sign a document to say that they've received independent legal advice and they understand the risk. So the husband goes for a loan outside of the wife, even though it says his property in his name, because she resides there and pretty much can be made homeless. She has to say that she understands the risk that he's putting the matrimonial home in.
Okay. All right. Okay, now so the floor is open for questions. I see a question in the chat. Someone's asked, Dr. O, what does DTI stands for? And I see, okay, debt to income ratio, how much debt you can afford outside of how much debt you already own. All right, do we have any questions that anyone in the audience would like to ask? You can raise your emoji hand and we will acknowledge you. And while we're still asking, I'm going to continue to have the dialogue still with my guest. If anybody, let's see, I'm going through. to see if we have any raise of emojis for hand. Okay.
Can you hear me while listening to this? I got that 20/20 vision. So.
Oh, okay, that was an error there. Okay, Dr. Omai, one thing your focus on is about generational wealth, and Mr. Maynard spoke briefly on that. When is the best time to speak financial literacy, teach financial literacy to a child or a teenager? Okay, can you hear me? Okay, I see a bit buffering. The internet is buffering a bit. All right, so Mr. Maynard, you can answer the question. I think Dr. Omai, her internet is buffering a bit.
You teaching staff.
I start when women are pregnant.
Sorry.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead. Okay, Doctor. All right, Mr. Maynard, proceed, because Dr. Omai, I see her, she's having internet connectivity issue. When is a good time to teach generation?
It's financial literacy which is the first thing, and then later on they can understand generational wealth. But from day one, from an early age, I mean, before the pandemic, when it was okay to take children to the supermarkets and so forth, get them into the supermarket. You're going to buy a car, let them help even with choosing the color and the model. You know that they're going to probably choose the bigger, shiny ones, but which you can't afford, but still get them involved in the process. As soon as they can write, let them start writing the checks at the supermarket, and you can sign them. So they just learn in very subtle, simple ways. And I do believe that it then continues where, sadly, it's lacking in our school system, where financial management is not taught. We all know the algebras, and we all know how to measure an angle. And I don't know how many of us have actually used that after graduating, but we certainly have children in early adults in their 20s who probably can't balance a checkbook and don't know certain things. So financial literacy is important. And then the next step is obviously when you're going to get that mortgage, when you're going to do anything, get them involved, let them hear, understand, let them read, so they can understand that, the house over the roof doesn't come overnight. It's hard work, it's sacrifice. And so they can cherish it, and they understand later down in life that, don't just keep selling. No, you don't just sell for this and sell for that. Everybody who had something has worked hard for it. And, that should continue through, and real estate and assets as much as possible should be kept.
Okay. Do we have anybody with questions? I know Mr. Elton Sampson, I know he have had questions that he would love to ask. This is a good time to ask the questions to our guest. You're muted.
Good evening, Toastmaster Francois. Good evening, everyone. Now, real estate, people look at it in two ways, and the term real estate seems to be a pun. And how is being a realtor different from flipping a house or house flipping? And if somebody wants to be a realtor as a career, what's the best way for them to start?
All right,
and
so
one of the panelists can take this question.
Yeah. So flipping a house is, I would consider that probably more under real estate development. So you're looking at a house, you are going to purchase it, renovate it, and bring it back to the market and sell it, and hopefully for a profit. So you as an individual can do that process from beginning to end. You can, you buying it, you negotiate, manage the renovation, and then you can sell it yourself. And that's complete. Or you can At the end of the renovation, bring it to a realtor and the realtor will sell it for you. And the realtor will charge you a fee for selling it. So they're two separate things, but they can work, a person can work in tandem and just do the complete from beginning to end. Becoming a realtor, what was the question? If it's hard?
So how does one get started becoming a realtor?
Well, the correct way to be is to certainly register your company. Some persons try to do it as a little sideline, but you want to register your company. And basically, what the function is, it's connecting persons with properties with buyers, and so you have to know both. You have to know persons with properties that have property, land, and houses to sell, and you then advertise them, and then you connect them with the buyers. That's the short answer. Obviously, you want to have some experience in lands and buildings and knowing the island and knowing trends and where is hot and where is not. That basically just comes from experience. Let me just also add that real estate is seen as part of the financial services sector. That includes insurance, offshore banking, rent-a-cars, car sales, and precious metals. So that means you fall under the ONDCP, which is the National Drugs and Money Laundering. You fall under the FSRC as well. So you'd have to register there, get training there, because every transaction has to go through a specific process to ensure that you are not in any way involved in money laundering.
So
let me just clarify. When I say you being involved, meaning that either the buyer or the seller. And if either of the two involved, and you are the agent in the middle, you have questions to answer.
Or get fined or imprisoned.
Correct.
So passive income need to be regulated. Okay. I see a question here. What are your thoughts on prefabricated homes in the Caribbean? What are your thoughts on prefabricated homes in the Caribbean?
You have to speak with an engineer and see whether they have stood the test of time. We have the prefabricated homes that are made, for example, in Australia, and Australia has similar weather conditions to the Caribbean to some degree. So in certain parts of Australia, that is. So you can probably look at places like that. But those things you have to speak with an engineer, and you'd have to have a discussion with the DCA, because it's not recommended you just see it online and bring it in, because the DCA may not approve it. The DCA has to, from putting up a sign on the side of the road to putting up a multi-story structure, the DCA has to approve it. So it's important for you to get those approvals before. When I say approvals, they won't approve something just on paper, but to find out if they would approve it before you import one of those structures.
Oh, okay, so the final question, I saw on the flyer, the real in real estate. Could Dr. O expand on that, please? That's the final question. The real in real estate.
Well, it just means that it's tangible and it's something that can be touched. It's something that, so there's digital real estate and then there's the real estate, right? So digital just means that it's a footprint, it's online, it's something that's intangible, but it still has a lot of value. So when we think about real in real estate, we're thinking about something that we can actually touch, even though we're not going to necessarily always be able to pick it up. It's something that is an edifice that you can actually touch and you can pass on to somebody else and or for trade, like we were talking about sellers and buyers. And it's something that you can see and so on and so forth. So for that reason, they call it real, but it is an estate. And that part to me is the mindset, the legacy part and all the other details.
Okay. Well, any more? I don't think we have any more questions. Let me see if any emojis, we have any hands raised for, no? Okay, and I think we take that as a wrap. Thank you all so much, and we hope we answered everyone's questions. Thank you, Dr. Omai, for traveling all the way through Zoom to Antigua, to the Antigua Toastmasters Club.
It's a trick, it's a trap. I'm just trying to get in good so I can physically come there and I know people that love me.
You're welcome to come.
And also to our FCCA, Miss Cassandra Simon, who's also a Toastmaster. Thank you for traveling all the way through Zoom to, yes, thank you so much. And, you know, and Mr. Franklin Maynard, yes, you traveled all the way through Zoom. Yes, you did. Yeah, the airways Zoom. So thank you all so much. And I hand it back to Alexa. Okay, all right. Okay, so I hand it back to a lectern, back over to our Toastmaster of the evening. And that is DTM Julia.
Thank you, Toastmaster Francois, for organizing this educational discussion on real estate. We thank our esteemed panel for sharing the real in real estate. It was a fruitful and enlightening discussion. Thank you so much. As a reminder, our theme for this evening is never buy gold, earn it, meaning you have to work hard for what you want.